your diagnosis not of an experience of one doctor. It contains the experience of hundreds and thousands of doctors and patients, and your diagnosis are far likely to be true than the diagnosis of one expert doctor. So look at the change which is going to happen for a doctor. He will be jobless sometimes. A machine connected to you will diagnose you and tell you the type of medication that you need to give much faster. Look at the life of a lawyer. If you want to file a case, you go to a lawyer and then tells him that I have such and such case, and he will make an affidavit to be filed. But today, a computer can do it much better, because he has database of thousands of similar cases, and he can synthesize a affidavit in the language which is required for that particular court and the particular jurisdiction, particular approach of law internationally, and then make a draft. Of course, an expert lawyer can once again review it to see that everything is fine, but it can be done in a matter of minutes, where it used to take matters of hours, because it refers to so much of judgments and other data sets which are correlated, and then make a case for you to file an affidavit. The whole thing can be done in no time today with the computer system. So what will happen to a lawyer's job? I do not know. Now, you look at the chips that are there in your cars today. You know, every car is now equipped with 30, 40 chips. It is there in the wheels, it is there in the sensors, it is in the horn, in the audio system, your GPS, your speed sensors, petroleum injection, air pressure, everything is measured by chipsets, distributed computational system. It gives you the operating computer to do the entire car driving. You cannot do anything with spanners today. You need a computer to understand what is wrong with a car if it stops in the midway of the road. The spanner technology is gone. Now computer is driving the car. After some time, driverless cars are going to be there. It's already there, but slowly it is going to be there amongst you, like your automotives. Look at space. The space age is slowly catching up. Earlier, you used to go to moon. 1960s, when America sent, afterwards nobody sent people to moon, but there is a moon race happening now. America said that we are going to build a space station around moon. We are going to have continuous access to moon, human access. And the program, Artemis program, is already on. The missions are still going to happen. From there, people are going to travel to Mars. And Elon Musk says, I will transport lakhs of people to Mars, build colonies, so that human beings can go and settle in Mars and create large colonies forever. And convert Mars to a habitable planet with hundreds of years of work, which is already there, called terraforming. If you do that, oxygen will be generated, water will come, life will again start on Mars. All these are not fiction. I am not talking fiction. I am talking about realities, well-researched findings in books, in literature. It's all there. I am not taking nothing new. I am speaking about what is there in front of you. Now, once all this happens, there is something else happens in the social sector. The whole world is now getting connected. It's no longer done by one nation. The whole of this activity happens as a global activity. The powers and forces that decides these things are not the national powers. They are the powers far beyond the boundaries of the nations. Now the nation's role will become very different. The power, what you talked about, the determination, deciding. It will come in amongst you. Why I am telling all of this to young people is to find interest in science, technology, and engineering, while we understand all other domains. The power that we want to live comfortably, safely, securely, healthy, satisfied individuals in this world is a function of how good you are educated in terms of the influence of this technology in your life, and become an integral part of your life. It's also important to create jobs, business, and similar other activities in this area. Unless you create that interest, you cannot become an entrepreneur. You cannot create value out of what these businesses are. Why don't you be a part of the whole chain of this whole ecosystem that is going to develop in the world, especially in states like Assam? I believe that the universities like Prague Georgian University will prepare you to do such things. I understand there is a very important coursework that is starting in science, engineering, science, possibly science area, technology area here, and I would like you to take interest in it while you are interested in other subjects. In fact, I know I am an engineer, but I have a great passion for history. I like many other topics of this nature because you need to understand the connection between many things. It's also important to understand, to be fascinated by science. See, other professor, you mentioned about the James Webb Telescope. I was very keen to look at it. You know what is James Webb Telescope? I think you would have read about it, right? Some of you would have read about it. It actually looks deeper into the universe. Can you see past? Can you see yesterday?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes.
How?
Because light travels because we see through light and light
You see through light. Okay, you understand a little bit. So
yeah.
Light has a fantastic property that it actually comes to your, yesterday's light comes to your eyes, then you are able to see yesterday. Then you must be at least 1 day away. The speed of the light should be such a way that if you are 1 day away from the source of the light, then you are actually seeing yesterday, then it falls in your eyes. It's the same story like seeing in the past. Billions of years past what happened can actually be seen by you. Really you can see because the photons from that time is still traveling through the space unobstructed. And if you can collect that photons, you can actually see the past. Past is also present. That is anyway another philosophy. Nothing is past, present, future, etc. don't exist. There is only one thing that exists, that is now. That's another story. But then it is true scientifically also. You are actually seeing past. We want to see closer and closer to the Big Bang point and then find out what actually happened at that point in time. This is precisely the one Webb telescope is doing by collecting very feeble signatures of the photons that emitted at that point, which is still traveling. And if you are able to build more powerful machines to collect light, which is already redshifted to other frequencies, not in the visible spectrum, you will be able to see that. And beautifully it has brought out the original universe that is getting created at that point. Still not the black hole. It's such a fascinating story, you know, seeing history 13, 14 billion years back. I don't know how your human being can even visualize this. You know, have you ever seen sky? I always ask the students this question. You see sky, you know, night sky, stars, are they there? You know, they are not there, you know. When you look at them, they are blinking, stars, none of them are there. Not a single one. Because they were all there years and years back. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 25 years, hundreds of years back. They were there. And that light is still coming. And that light is what you are seeing. None of them are there physically there. And they would have already gone far away. And it will continue to travel far away. So what you are actually seeing, the picture in the sky, is nothing but history, isn't it? Okay, so you should better get interested in scientific history. So it's such a beautiful feeling, and you think about it. This what you are seeing is a drama, which is not a real thing. The whole of this universe, when you look at it physically, is not real. It's actually very surreal. You should feel goosebumps when you think about it, really, deeper. And it's very interesting to look at even materials. And when you look at materials, you will understand that the whole materials, so much of energy packed in each of these materials, the atoms, the electrons, the voids that is present here. I just give an example. You take a hydrogen atom. Hydrogen atom contains one proton, one electron. You studied in school, no? You take the proton is here, the electron is rotating around this proton. You expand it like this hole. It's very tiny, no? You make it bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, assuming that it's made bigger and fit in this hole. The proton will still be at the center, you cannot still see it. It's still too small, even if it is expanded to the size, the proton is so small that you cannot see. And the electron is also still too small than proton, that also you cannot see. It is moving around that proton. And you look at the gap between the proton and electron, so huge, vast space between that proton and electron. And that hydrogen atom, you call it such a tiny thing, is full of space. There is no material, visible material in that hydrogen atom itself. Is not a beautiful thing to think about? The whole of this material that you see as physical, real object is full of gap, full of void. There is nothing inside. Can you think about that dream, that idea? The whole of this is created out of that concept of space. And that's why people like me are being, space people. The space is everywhere. Space is not within the material. The space is the whole of the universe. It's actually a representation of the cosmos, what you are actually seeing it. I can tell you that such thoughts inspires me to work in space, build rockets, travel to moon and Mars, explore sun and other objects, send human beings to space, because it is an inspirational work that we are doing. Human beings have this power to dream. He can build machines, he can travel and explore, try to understand the universe. But your ability to understand the universe is also going to be very limited. We all know that. Our ability to physically understand the universe is going to be extremely limited, because we are limited by the sensory perceptions that we have, the five senses that we have. And they are very limited capability. For example, your ability to see this room is limited by 3 dimensions. It has length, breadth, and height. Has it got one more dimension? You can't. Human being cannot visualize a dimension beyond these 3. Of course, we know there is one more dimension. What is the dimension? Time. Okay. So you know that that is understood by your learning process, not by physically feeling it. So your physical field are limited only to 3 dimensions, and the 4th one is actually put into your mind by teachers. But the dimensions of the universe are not even 3; they are much more. The string theory says it's 11-dimensional space, and none of the human being can understand what is 11-dimensional space. You cannot even go to the 5th dimension. So you understand human beings are have a very limited capability, and this limited capability you are trying to understand a very complex system like the universe. And you will never reach there to understand it fully, never ever. But telling never ever is not correct still, because people have understood it. And this is understood by other levels of conscience. It's not by the physical way of it. That's why the other dimensions of understanding has to come to human beings. How to explore other options, to understand how all this have come out in a different dimension. Of course, I am not the one who understood all of that. I am only telling that there are people who explored it in their own way, came out with answers and to understand all of this. So it is equally important. While you look at science, you should also understand the limitations of what you are trying to find out and create the passion to understand in deeper sense that our nation is famed for such explorations, not now, thousands of years back. The Rishis, they looked at it by manana, by thinking about it. They created some knowledges which still very relevant. So I will only welcome you to read it, understand it. When you grow enough to understand those type of things, it will really enrich your life and make your life great. So let me stop at this moment, my speech part, and we'll get into some interactions. Okay? Thank you.
So we'll now have an open house interaction. We already have the cordless microphones there in the auditorium. Our ছাত্ৰ-ছাত্ৰীসকলে যদি প্ৰশ্ন কৰিব বিচাৰে আপোনালোকে থিয় হৈ প্ৰশ্নটো সুধিব পাৰে।
Okay, start. Who is starting? Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is, sir, how do you motivate yourself every day when you face certain disappointment, when you work on a certain project or something you are researching upon? Thank you, sir.
The first and foremost important feeling that you must have is called gratitude. Okay, once you have developed that skill to develop gratitude for what you are today, then there is no need of any motivation. Why I am telling it is, for example, look at it. You must have great gratitude to your parents because their work that made you that you are today. to your teachers who had confidence in you, that you are a good student, you will come up, and you know what type of motivation I received from my teachers when I was a student. My institution is an inspiration all the way. When you are surrounded by such effort of thousands of people to make what you are today, how can you never be motivated? It is not you today. It is the result of thousands of people. Your parents, your teachers, your co-workers, your nation, your fellow beings, your loved ones, not so loving ones, all of them. All of them put together to make what you are today. I think there is no time for you to feel remorse or unhappy or anything. You may feel a little bit, but then the other power will always overtake you to do the purpose of what you are there. So once you understand that element of gratitude, many times people forget about gratitude. You think that you are the one who made everything. It is the people around you who made you what you are. Look at all the time who made you what you are. You will understand you are a child at this moment, but then you will, over the time you will travel, you will understand the influence of people on you. And they are the one who helped you to reach whatever you are. And once that is understood, I think you will never get demotivated by any adverse conditions.
Thank you, sir. Can we move ahead to our next question?
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, to your left.
Good evening, sir. I hope you are doing well. Sir, my question is that what new information can we get from this Chandrayaan 3 mission that we actually didn't know before?
Okay, it's a very important question. See, you know, Chandrayaan 1 we launched in 2008. You are aware of it now? And what came out of Chandrayaan 1? The most important finding?
Sir, according to me or as per my study, we got to know that in the surface of the moon, we can get water.
Fine. I think that is the most important finding.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, but that finding did not come immediately after the launch. And it was not a part of the objective also. There was some instrument to measure hydroxyl elements at that point. There were two instruments, one from the US, one from India. And in fact, the original identification of water was found by Indian instrument. But my scientists in India never believed there is water. They looked at it, there is signature. They were worried whether this is water or something else. They kept there secretly. They didn't publish it. Now the American scientists used their instrument code and then they published it. Now our people are confident. They said, okay, I also found it. So it became the second finding. See, many of the scientific findings in such missions come out little later. What exactly are the real repercussions of those signatures that you are seeing? This comes out of the correlations. See, you know, you don't have absolute measurements. You are doing spectral measurements. You are trying to relate to something else, etc. So this data has to be analyzed, tested against verifiable samples outside to prove that when somebody reviews this result, there are no contradictions. So this process will continue for some time, like peer review, peer analysis, etc. And once you find something very significant enough that ought to be published, it will be published. So typically that water finding took almost a year to find out. After the Chandrayaan 1 launch, almost 1 year later only the publication came. So we are just a few months after launch. The data is still not reached all the scientists yet, Chandrayaan 3, it is under validation. My thinking is that following things are likely to happen. Not really. See, there are fundamental questions about moon. All questions cannot be answered by one Chandrayaan 3 mission. There are many missions to follow. But at least we must decide on the origin of moon. Origin of the moon, whether it is actually came from Earth as a asteroid hit and separated out, whether the mineral classification really substantiate that it is actually originated from Earth or not. This is one question. Second is there are other behaviors like the presence of water, the absence of atmosphere. Why cannot be an atmosphere still not be present? The gravity is enough to keep it some way, but it's not there. The non-uniformity of the gravity field of Earth is again another funny thing, because some areas are very dense, some areas not very dense. Why it happened? The tectonic activities that are happening in moon, the reason and significance of it. We talk about helium-3. There is not much evidence still. So there are many questions of this nature which we are trying to find out. I believe those answers will come with the payloads that we have here, many of them, 5 of the payloads are specifically addressing these questions. Okay? I will limit that only, so we'll wait for some more findings to come.
Thank you. We have another question, sir. To your right.
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
My question goes like this. Earlier, ISRO Chandrayyan 2 get failure. If someone face any problems, what piece of advice will you give to them?
I understand that the failure is due to some person. Huh? I didn't get that.
Earlier, ISRO failed in Chandrayaan 2 mission. If someone face any failures, what piece of advice would you give to them?
Okay, for other failures in their life. Okay. See, I failed in examinations. While I was writing university examination, I don't know why I failed, but I failed. My result showed it was failed. What will you do then? You'll go and tell your parents, I failed. They will immediately shout at you, oh, you failed. Oh, you should have got the first rank, you should have succeeded. You go for a competition, a quiz competition, you come back without any prize. Again, your peers, your colleagues, friends, they say, oh, you missed this time. You go for an art competition. You face this problem. If you don't get your marks, your grades, your top positions, people around you could be unhappy. Correct? In life it happens. So, I have only one way to answer this. In your age, in your time, etc., it is very difficult to understand. But then, people will definitely criticize. And I have seen people who lost every interest because of this criticism. If I tell you something, then possibly you will not be able to handle it. So actually, I should speak to the parents, teachers, etc., not you. On supporting people who have a passion, even if they are failing. People do fail. And there is no shortcut to go through failures to reach success. Nobody has succeeded in life just first time. There are cases where people have succeeded in first time. It is to understand that failure is an essential element of human travel, life. You will face in some areas you may not fail, but many areas you are likely to fail. Examination is only one aspect of it, because you are looking at success, failure in a measurable quantity. There are non-measurable failures and non-measurable successes. That is of different class. But then ultimately you must say that you should not be critical of failures. Failure should be used for introspection. Parents should allow children to introspect. Ask them what actually went wrong. What if you did, it could have been better. If you engage in a discussion of this nature, the positive impact is very, very high. Actually, success, failures don't determine a person's future, an event like a success or a failure. But it gives you a moral booster for you to achieve things. Of course, it has a merit being successful, but it's not a point that you should do criticism. Why I'm saying all of this, I failed many times in my organization. Many of those stories are nobody knows. Where all I made mistakes, where all I failed, nobody knows. Only my boss knows. Because he contained with himself. I'll give you one story. Possibly, we may not understand that this was one assembly of a satellite was going on one fine evening. It was late night, around 10 o'clock. I was assembling the satellite called Kalpana. It is called METSAT. Later it was renamed as Kalpana satellite. Maybe you can search and find out. That satellite was going to be integrated with the PSLV. I was in charge of assembly of the satellite. I was assembling the satellite, and when it was almost getting assembled, I heard a small, tiny click sound. I felt something has gone wrong inside. It would have broken. Then I said it must be dismantled. Of course, I could have simply assembled it. It got almost assembled. If I left it, the mission would have failed. I realized after opening and seeing it, the engine of the satellite has hit the stage and something is broken in the stage, the rocket. I took it out. I kept it there. The launch, which is supposed to happen 2 days later, 2 or 3 days later, is now postponed. Of my action. We'll have to go back and see, because I am responsible for the assembly. I should have checked everything. It should not have hit. There should have been some reason for hitting. It could be my reason or something else. But then I was confident enough that I must remove it and take it out and then see if nothing has happened. Then after this event, then there was a big meeting. Chairman of ISRO at that time, Dr. Rangan, came. I was a young engineer. My boss, Mr. Ramakrishnan, told, you make a presentation on what could have went wrong and how you can handle this issue. I made a PowerPoint presentation immediately on how this has happened. Then he went through it and told me that you don't present. I am going to present, my boss said. Then the meeting chairman was asking me who was there at that time doing this assembly. I stood up. Many people before the meeting told me you are going to get big firing today from chairman ISRO. He did not fire me. I only stood up there. I said I was in charge of it. And the presentation was done by my boss, not by me. You understand the difference? And after that whole point was over, action was given to how to understand this problem of hitting, what impact it would have created, what corrections that you can do, how to bring back the launch again in another 2 days. And I was put on charge of it. In next 48 hours, I did not sleep. I did work on that to make sure that impact is rectified, the modifications are done on the stage, the whole assembly is brought back. And after 48 hours, I was again standing there assembling the same satellite on the same rocket. The management of the organization allowed me, oh, you have already hit, you have damaged it, now somebody else assemble. No, they said you assemble. You understand that impact of it on you? This is called the building the confidence on people who actually made a mistake. And I realized what went wrong. The went wrong was due to certain measurement error in the heights of many things. My subordinates did the calculation and they actually went wrong and he reported me this number. I said that there is already number. In fact, physically I checked. I felt it is correct. I also went wrong. So chain of events led to the mistake. But the whole organization did not penalize me for that error of causing that damage, causing that mistake, because they realized if I had gone without that launch, this never would have come out. The mission would have failed and you will be searching what went wrong. So this is called the power of mentorship, power of owning collective responsibility of mistakes. And this is what makes work ISRO great. One individual can always make a mistake, but then collectively we take the responsibility to make it correct, build the confidence in people and put them on a higher pedestal. This you must do in society, in place, schools, and colleges, everywhere we should do.
Thank you, sir. Can we have our next question?
Yeah.
Namaskar. Good evening, sir. Myself Anvisha. And since we know that launching of rocket is the cause of depletion of ozone layer.
Ocean?
Ozone layer.
Also, okay.
So my question is that, is there any solution by which we can launch a rocket as well as we save the ozone layer?
Okay. See, ozone layer is not a small layer. It's a pan-global layer. So it's there existing everywhere. It also dynamically changes with time. Sometimes poles appear, sometimes it goes due to various interactions that happen in the atmosphere. It's not a static thing. And it is also damaged due to the CFCs and many other things which are being emitted. Correct? That's what you mentioned, no? Yeah. So one way to handle it is by looking at the control of this, which is already in place now. So there are some timelines for control of the chlorofluorocarbons and various other items that actually causes damage to ozone layers. And ozone creation itself is being now observed from space now, because there are multiple ways by which ozone is actually produced. The biological actions which are taking, the cosmological actions which actually generates ozones, both are of different types. Ozones which comes out of the biological actions are actually poison. Ozone is not always good, you know. Ozone comes out of even biological actions which is actually causing so much of respiratory and other related problems of human beings. But then there are other ozones which are generated in the upper atmosphere, which is helping you to create the ozone layers, which protects the radiation, other impacts. So this is one side. Space I believe rockets have no very little to do with the repair of ozone layers, but it can only help in launching satellites to observe this, to warn people which are the primary sources of CFC's emissions. For example, chemical plants sometimes eject this very large quantity unknowingly. So we have observational platforms across the globe with sensors looking at it, and then warn people, yes, there are some emissions of high level happening by human activity. But there are activities which actually generate these type of things not by human, by natural activity. So both are observed through satellites and give warning, quantification, and impact assessment. This type of things space technology can really do. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Can we take a few more questions, sir? আৰু কোনোবাই যদি প্ৰশ্ন সুধিব বিচাৰিছে? So can we take 2 more questions?
I am at your service, whatever time.
Namaskar, sir. I'm from Physics Department, Peabody College. Sir, I had a question. So in subjects like astrophysics or even basics physics, the general public feels who are not in pursuit of this subject, they feel a deep passion about these subjects, but also somewhere they also feel intimidating feel about these subjects. As you can see, people, just general public, I'm not talking about the people, the profession or the students, the general public. They share their thoughts, their innovative ideas in other fields. For example, politics, economics, sociology. They share their subjects, they share their opinions, they share their innovative ideas. But somewhere, these subjects are much more complicated, I feel like, sir, than our general physics. But they still feel intimidation in studying these subjects. Like, if I bring my mom here and show you that this is a space person of India, she will feel very overwhelmed. But she will never for once think about persuading herself persuading this subject. So, as the flagship of science of this country, sir, the ISRO, is there something we can do about it, sir?
See, there were great people who were great communicators. Professor talked about Professor Yashpal, Jayan Narlika. Have you heard their TV shows, their interactions, your expositions of science? Heard anything Richard Attenborough's TV serials on science? See, the way science is put in front of people is that matters. Why do you like music? Do you like music?
Yes, sir.
Because it is music to your ears, it gives you joy. If science is capable of building joy in you, then there will be plenty of people. It's a question of putting it in front of them on many aspects of it, science. One is utility aspect, the mathematical aspect alone you are interested. That's where people get bored. If you simply learn something for just utility, it will never be interesting to anybody. It has to create intelligential inquiry processes. It should generate aesthetics within the mind of the people. It should also create joy of involvement. If you can connect people with these type of elements in communication, then it actually creates interest in people to discuss it. Did you listen to my hydrogen atom, that aspect of it, no?
Yes, sir.
Think about things like that you can bring in beauty in everything. For science, space, I talked about seeing the past. No, it actually for a normal person who thinks past cannot be seen, you say through science I can see past. It itself is a very subject which actually gives them such a new vision to the whole thing. It is applicable in every domain of science, life. For example, I talk about nervous system functioning, how nerves function, the chemical communicators that work in our body, how disease actually causes like this, the photosynthesis. If you talk about photosynthesis, it's such a beautiful thing about the cyanobacteria that came and how it actually go to the animals and plants, and how animals became not photosynthesis capable, while plants became photosynthesis capable. Now how that still work within our human body and trees. The cyanobacteria still present in some form in every plant that actually converts sun energy to the chemical energy that we have, how energy is getting released, how people grow and die. Beautiful thing, no? The science is actually very artistically beautiful, music really. It's a question of some people who have the ability to understand and bring some nice elements of it and put in very simple terms to people. It must be done. And you should create some people in this state with that language capability, that type of communication capability, pick them, train them, and then put them in schools and colleges and talk to people. It's very important idea. Because you should speak in the language of the people. And if you can do that, it really give you magic. I think many young people who gets into science is because of such inspirational story that they hear in their lifetime once or twice. They really get fascinated. I'll tell you one story, possibly many of the students may not understand because they are maybe in schools or sometimes in the early colleges. When I was a student, I went to Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore for my master's program. That day, that college, I was studying a subject called dynamics subject. Okay, let it be. But then there was one equation, mathematical equation. It's a big equation. That equation is called Lagrange's theorem. I don't know, some Lagrange in Europe found out this theorem. So it says, this theorem if you use, I can convert energy to vector space. Energy is called scalar. You know scalar? Scalar has a quantity, it has no direction. You know science people know. Vector is as in quantity and a direction. So when you are converting one something called scalar, a scalar cannot produce a vector. This is a fundamental. A vector can produce a scalar. So this equation converts energy to space. Energy to space. You understand the importance of this? Energy is an abstract quantity who exists not in physical realm, it exists in non-physical realm. And space is something that exists in physical realm in dimensions. And a simple mathematical equation, dou by dou, so dy by dou ti dot minus d by dx. So there is some equation like that. If you use that equation, I can convert energy to vectorial space. This is one understanding of it. But the whole beauty of it is this equation can be used for anything, solving any problem. Like how if I take this, if I push it, it goes and stays here. How? I can solve that equation. I can solve how a wave bends and falls down. How it is this shape of the wave. Why it is not any other shape. When I swing a pendulum, why it moves like this. When I heat something, the temperature rises. How it temperature rises. How much temperature will rise. If moon is moving around Earth, I can explain using the same equation. When I launch a rocket, it will go in that orbit or not. I can solve using the same equation. What a phenomenal equation it is. I studied this equation one night, one evening I heard in the class, night I went to room, looked at this equation and actually started crying. You will cry if you understand the significance of that equation and its impact on the transformation of these two ideas called energy, which is an abstract quantity, non-physical. Okay, it's physical in some way, but then vector, a space, everything which is not existing, shunya, converting to become the abstract physical. You look at the spiritual connect between these two. A mathematical equation describing the connectivity between the absolute and the real. It's not very, keeping you a feeling of high knowledge. These are the true knowledges. Tell people like this. It will make them change their track and life sometimes.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? We have many more. So, shall we take two more?
You'll ask them.
We'll have last two questions. Due to time constraint, I request you to kindly keep your question a bit short and direct.
Sir, till today what you have done with a team spirit. Sir, till today what you have done with a team spirit. So would you like to speak a few words on your team lead experiences?
See, when I joined ISRO, I was very fortunate to be in a team which was mentored by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Abdul Kalam was the SLV project director. He just finished that SLV project. He was just leaving to DRDO at that point. And all those people who were part of the SLV3 project, where project was dismantled, they were building PSLV. So the PSLV team was formed, Dr. Srinivasan, Dr. Madhavan Nair, and many others who were his deputies came to this project, and I joined the same project, and they were my bosses. You can understand the influence. Each of them were very accomplished people, but they were mentored by Kalam. I can see Kalam in them, because whatever I read about Kalam later, I could understand they were each one of them of that type of people, motivated, very capable in terms of subject knowledge, how to handle big teams, how delegate responsibility, put people at a higher level. So I enjoyed that company of those great people. So naturally, the capability of ours also developed in that similar lines. So very early time itself, it is understood that this work which we are doing is not a simple work. It is a very multi-dimensional work which requires understanding of so many people. And if one person can never do, 100 people cannot do, 1,000 people are required to do. So that aspect came out of such exposure. So I will only say that much because the team is well talked about in various ways. Sadish Savan spoke about it, Sarabhai, Kalam would have spoken about it in many, many ways. But I can say you that the culture is still remaining in the organization in terms of building teams, multidisciplinary team to understand and respect each other. I think this is already there.
যিহেতু সময় আমাৰ হাতত বহুত কম আছে
কিবা ৰেকৰ্ডিং ওলোৱা হৈছিল